Transition, Transformation, and the Radical Thinking podcast. I'm your host, Nicholas Kianda. Today, I'll be giving you a summary of the message that was shared 1 week ago. That makes it the 5th of October 2025. And the preacher for that day was Osai, Obbo, Onen. Well, the first question is, who needs parenting hacks anyway? Are you a parent? Have you given birth to any children? Why should you even listen to this message? That was one of the things that she wanted to establish for the congregation at the start of the message. Now, you are in a sense a parental figure. In Africa, we just say that a child is raised by the village, and so you don't have to be related to someone to have an influence on that person and to be viewed as a parental figure. So there's a book written titled Discipleship in the New Testament, and I'll give you a brief summary, but one of the quotes that came from the book is the idea that education is discipleship. The second quotation we got from the message was the idea that you can't have success without a successor. So we have to be thinking constantly about transferring, quote unquote, the mantle or letting other people become better than us, especially those who are younger than us, which are, in this case, we're talking about children. So let me give you a summary of what the book Discipleship in the New Testament says or is about. The book explores the concept of discipleship, focusing on how Jesus called people to follow him and the characteristics of a true disciple in the New Testament. The author examines key passages in the Gospel and Acts, highlighting the teachings of Jesus and the examples of early Christians. The book emphasizes the importance of commitment, sacrifice, and growth in faith as essential parts of discipleship. It aims to help readers understand the biblical model of following Christ and how to apply it in their own lives today. Now, investment in education, the preacher said, is also an investment in discipleship. You have people in your house who are influenced by your presence. As a guardian, you are constantly influencing. When you take a child to school and you leave them there, the child is being discipled. But as a parent, the pastor said, you have to be active. You can't be passive in who raises your children because ultimately education is discipleship. In the second book, Economics, the author Michael Green handles a couple of subjects. So let me just summarize what the chapters talk about. So the preacher mentioned these two books in a sense to highlight the importance of discipleship or the importance of education as discipleship, or at least to help us understand what it means to be a successful parent. And as we've said before, you're a parent not because you've given birth to children, but because you've got people who look up to you. And those may be nieces, nephews, neighborhood children, or anybody else who looks at you as a public figure that can influence their lives. So chapter 1 says, can you have it all? It explores what it means to live a good life. It challenges conventional ideas about wealth and success. Chapter 2 talks about Jesus as the prosperity theologian. It discusses how Jesus' teachings differ from the prosperity gospel, focusing on holistic flourishing beyond financial wealth. The third chapter talks about the economics of Jesus. It examines his approach to investing time, energy, and money as key to living a fruitful life. The fourth chapter talks about the 5 capitals. It introduces a framework which involves relational capital, spiritual capital, physical, financial, and ranks them by value. I should have said actually that the first one is spiritual, the second one is relational, the third is physical, the fourth is intellectual, and the fifth is financial. So in the message, she highlights this framework of the 5 capitals to help you understand how to balance them and which one comes first, which one is foundational, etc., etc. In chapter 5, he talks about keeping things in order. managing and prioritizing these capitals. In chapter 6, he talks about investing for return. It is guidance on how to invest the capitals for growth and greater impact. In chapter 7, there are practical stories of investment and growth, where there are real life examples and anecdotes illustrating these principles in action. The overall theme is about making wise investments in various forms of capital beyond just money. Now, in case as a listener you're curious about what verse was used to underlie the whole discussion, the preacher went on to mention Mark chapter 8 verse 6, which basically talks about what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and yet lose his soul? Suggestions for a successful parent to include exposing your children to God's word, leading them to Christ, and showing them practical ways in which the word has an effect on their lives. The preacher also suggested that we have to be intentional with our nieces and nephews, and that we should prioritize investing in spiritual things as opposed to every single other thing, as stated in the framework. She also asked us to be curious and cautious in terms of what we let our children watch and listen to in terms of media, whether that's cartoons and other forms of entertainment. Now, I had mentioned before that the author is, or rather the preacher is an author. She has written a book titled Mama Kanisa, Confessions of a Pastor's Wife, and as well, Pastor Obbo Onen has written a book called Tenacious, and it's subtitled as The Diary of a Leader. You can find both of these books by visiting the church, which is currently located at Motive in Bugolobi, which is a place not too far away from the capital city. It's actually in the capital city. Once again, I've been your host. I hope that you've enjoyed this podcast or at least this message. We look forward to having you subscribe and listen to more of our content. Hopefully, we'll have another message for next week. We hope that you have a great Sunday today. Go out to have a great time with your fellow believers and great new week.